All right. Well, the apartment owners of the Aurora, Colorado apartments have spoken last week when Rogan had Donald Trump on. They talked about the reality, or they talked about the media ignoring what was going on in Aurora, Colorado. Now, obviously, the Trump Rogan podcast got so many views that everything on there would probably be viewed as viral to the point where they had to respond. And it did not fit the media narrative that it was just nothing. There was just a few apartment complexes. No, it was pretty bad. And they were violent. They were threatening. So you got that. That it just popped up on. I saw it minutes ago. Then you have Kamala Harris claiming that Trump would take away your free speech and the Second Amendment. Because Kamala Harris seems like somebody who would very much like to protect your Second Amendment rights. All right, so I got that. Trump has a rally in Madison Square Garden that the idiots, the media on the left are likening to a pro-Nazi rally that happened in 1939, coming out of the mouth of Tim Walz and Hillary Clinton. And if you want to check it out, Hillary Clinton's new book apparently has something in there about that Nazi rally, because, everybody thinks about Nazis all the time. I think about it, I just see them they're around every corner. I think a guy that was born in 1946 after World War II ended and has lived in America his entire life in a place and in a time where the Nazis have been nothing but demonized, that he's probably got very strong pro-Nazi sympathies. He probably totally cares about the Nazis, like they obsess about. So you got that. Beyonce was supposed to, or allegedly they were talking about Beyonce doing a concert at some Kamala Harris rally that packed house. 30,000 plus people showed up. And guess what? She didn't do a concert, but you got to watch Willie Nelson, because who doesn't love to watch a 90-year-old Willie Nelson sing? So many stories with the election coming up so short, so soon. We got going on here. So, according to James Carville, the old Crossfire dude, the reason why things are not looking so hot for Kamala and why people don't really want to walk away from Trump is because they haven't talked about what a threat he is to the Constitution enough. And if it's any more proof you needed that the media is a joke, I don't know what else is. Also Kamala Harris, according to The Hill, if she wants to win, she needs to raise minimum wage, because nothing helps the middle class quite like destroying the middle class by raising minimum wage. You got there's just so many things. AOC mentions that the party members not too happy with the Cheneys, campaigning with Kamala Harris. Portland, Oregon, Dropbox is set on fire. There's so many stories. If you would like to get my daily links and stories, go ahead and subscribe below. What you can do is on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I send out stories with commentary. So I do like 3 or 4 stories of commentary, then a bunch of links of stuff I read, not just news, like interesting stuff. I'm a historian, a writer, content creator, etc. So a lot of times I'll do history content, sometimes on there too, as far as like stories, history stuff I find interesting. So if you want to check that out, subscribe. And then on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I just send out links, period. So like I'll do like a little tiny, it'll be a sentence that kind of summarizes like what the story is about. Click the link if you want to check on it, or some type of way to find it enticing. So check that out. I record the show 3 days a week now. I was doing it like 5 or 6 days a week, but I'm trying to get a career off the ground here. This is part of the career I'm trying to get off the ground, but it's like with all the writing and stuff I'm doing, this is just the best way to do it for now. And I will go back up to 5 days a week once I actually start making money, which isn't happening right now. So I am Dr. Jesse Roberts. I'm a recent PhD graduate with PhD in history. So times are tough. employment is hard to come by, especially my wife's in medical school. So it's like we have no, I'm, she's a third year. So that's like she's gone all the time doing clinicals and stuff coming up. And we have kids. So I'm kind of been stuck at home trying to find stuff I could do at home. So things have been kind of chaotic. So if you need anybody that needs any writing work done, I do copywriting, blogs, emails, articles, everything you can imagine on that front. If you need anything done there. And if you would like any, guest articles or podcasts or anything on history, politics, news, the pet industry. I'm an expert in that, oddly enough, because I worked in it forever. And I do a podcast on pet nutrition called Healing Your Pet by Healing Bay Pet, which is my wife's company. If you found that sounds interesting, check it out. So this came out. Let's see what time this came out here. Oh wow, this is old. I don't know why I missed this. From CBZ Management. This came out on October 11th. So this came out. How is this possible?
See if you can find that story on the
One second here.
gangs
I just want to make sure
the
that
apartment building in Colorado.
We have new information.
Okay,
on
so
what
it's not
we've
it's
learned
not
is
the
happening
Trump
inside.
Rogan episode that they talked about this on. It's some other one. I haven't had time to watch that whole thing. It's long. It's 3 hours, and no offense to Trump, but I've seen an awful lot of him, enough to like I don't know if I really want to sit down and watch a 3 hour podcast with him. It's not because I couldn't do it. It's just I have so little time in my life as it is. So I'm constantly listening to other things that I don't have a lot of opportunity to get through that whole thing. I've seen clips. Looks great. Blew up. That's another thing. I guess YouTube and YouTube and Google have been throttling the video, which doesn't surprise me at all. And in fact, let's do it right now. Let's go to YouTube. I'll show you my search results in a second here. Unless they got busted and then they know. And then it'll pop up now. Oh, it popped up now. Funny. So a couple hours ago when I searched it even, I wasn't getting the actual podcast. It would just show me like clips or it would show you like commentary. And so I took screenshots of it, but now it actually popped up. And on YouTube alone, the video has 35 million views. That is crazy. Do you think 10 million people would watch Kamala Harris sit down for an interview with Joe Rogan? There's no way. That's why I think a lot of this stuff, when it comes to like her having these rallies, it's all fake. Because why would anybody waste their time going to that? It's the same thing. Now listen, Trump talks about a lot of the same things. But Trump supporters are like a very, very passionate bunch of people, and they love the guy. They are very much on board with the MAGA stuff. And it's a chance to see him. He's arguably the most famous person in the world. And people want to support him. Now, she doesn't draw that kind of interest. I don't think that there's much to entice people to go to a Kamala Harris political speech or rally, because it's all the same. They're all the same. You can go there. You can listen to her talk about how bad Donald Trump is, how evil he is, how she's going to make up this thing called the opportunity economy, which is just a bunch of political jargon. They'll do that. And it's like, what's the point of going? Because it's just the same thing every time. So they have to say, well, we're going to bring out this celebrity or that. Hey, there's a potential you'll see some famous person here. That's enough to draw a lot of people up. People like famous people sometimes. I don't really care. Like, it doesn't entice me at all. But yeah. So this is the thing I was talking about from October 11th of all times. I don't know how I missed this. From CBZ Management. The whole thing was a clip on Rogan talking about gangs taking over the properties in Aurora, Colorado. If you don't remember, that happened, and then the media tried to downplay it, even saying to JD Vance, like, hey, it was just a couple of apartment complexes. Not a big deal. So here we go. Are we ready to play it? Let me make sure everything got pulled up. Boom.
See if you can find that story on the Venezuelan gangs taking over the apartment building in Colorado.
We have new information on what we've learned is happening inside an apartment complex. This video shows armed men walking through a building, knocking on doors, then entering an apartment. The apartment complex is at 12th and Dallas and Aurora.
In doing so, have taken over several apartment complexes.
Venezuelan gangs are taking over the real estate. They're becoming real estate developers. And they have...
Do they get little cards?
Their little card is a bullet.
Yes!
Kamala Harris will work to deliver on that and secure the border.
Who's to blame? Carousel, if you will, continues. The city says the property management team is simply not doing enough to help these residents. And an interview with that property management team last week, they say that building is actually being controlled by a certain gang, and they feel helpless. There's nothing they can do about it.
They've, in fact, have kind of pushed out the property management through intimidation and then collected the rents. And arrests have been made, but these operations are still ongoing.
Okay, so saw that. And then the aftermath of this was, it was a conspiracy theory, remember? The whole thing's a conspiracy theory. It's fake. This is just Trump trying to incite hate toward illegal immigrants. This is just typical MAGA talking points, you know, anti-immigration stuff. The thread goes with this. Says they started managing these buildings when new owners acquired the Colorado properties in 2019. They were already in bad condition, so they decided to renovate them, you know, making them more inviting to live in. So they undertook a complete renovation, and you know, they look like they did a nice job. So this is they were progressing smoothly. Property value was rising. Vacancy rates were dropping. It was a win-win for both the owners in the city of Aurora. Check out this thread here, CBZ management. Now, after some time, we noticed a rise in the crime and tenant complaints. And the most alarming moment occurred when our local CBZ representative was attacked at the end of 2013. He had gone to inspect a recently vacated 3-bedroom apartment, a rare occurrence for such a large unit, only to find a group of men already inside. When he refused their $500 bribe, to overlook the situation, they brutally attacked him. This photo was taken shortly after he escaped, just before being admitted to the hospital. The video footage comes from one of our security cameras capturing the assault. So here's a picture of the manager, and then here's the footage. So that's them down there, obviously. And they just beat the piss out of him. Start just kicking him on the ground. You know, probably guy's lucky he got away with his life there. So after the attack on the representative, he began getting threatening text messages. They frequently found people illegally occupying newly vacated apartments during the scheduled tours. This was initially attributed to an influx of migrants exploiting squatter lots. We even received a call from a tenant returning from vacation only to find strangers living in this apartment. This legitimate tenant was forced to find a new home. The police couldn't help him. So you got, I don't know what's going on here. So it looks like people just busting in. Looks like just people like, hey, let's just make ourselves at home. Kick the door in. Good place to live, right? It's a liberal place to Colorado. Don't let us stay here. Excuse me. Now, when confronted, many of these illegal tenants and squatters claimed they had already paid rent. They were soon realized was true, but not to us. They were paying rent to a different entity. To address this entity, in parentheses gangs, we contacted every city official we could think of for help with the problem. None were willing to take meaningful action, which is shocking, I know, right? Imagine the government. Turning open my window there. Imagine the government not wanting to help. Crazy. How they wouldn't want to get involved in a sticky situation involving, you know, immigrants. Now, sorry, undocumented people. So finally, the APD, FBI, Homeland Security informed us that those sending messages and controlling our buildings were part of a notorious Tren Aragua gang from Venezuela. Situation was just a blip on the radar, as this gang is causing significant problems nationwide. 2 days after our FBI meeting, the gang confronted our on-site manager, asserting control over all 3 properties. They offered an ultimatum: share rental income 50-50 or lose the buildings permanently. They also threatened to harm him and his family. So this is just like, they're just the mafia. But the mafia that actually hurts the people. Once we fully understood what we and our tenants were facing, we expected a swift response, with the city offering meaningful resources and police protection, perhaps even from the National Guard, to help us regain control of our property, but that never happened. Instead, we were left helpless, watching as violence, bullets, and destruction overtook our buildings. They lost many of their tenants out of fear. City officials refused to acknowledge the reality. They blamed us for code violations as the reason for shutting down our property, violations we couldn't resolve. Then you finally had one of the tenants reach out in desperation, who happened to have camera footage, which they said that most of their camera footage was destroyed. There's video clips here. I don't have time to watch these, but I watched them earlier. Despite clear evidence, many still deny the reality of the situation, using us as scapegoats. We're no longer staying silent. We will continue to counter falsehoods with simple facts and evidence. Yes, gangs did take control of our apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado, and the government did nothing. That is a real story. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. So there you have it. I mean, this became a situation where they automatically reverted to calling Donald Trump racist because he, they called Trump racist because he was he was apparently just he was espousing racist attitudes towards immigrants because he was talking about them committing crimes in this area. I don't know if you've been to Colorado lately. If you live there, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'd never been to Colorado before last year. Last summer, I went to Boulder. I went to what is the name of it? I can't think of the name of it. Just right outside Rocky Mountain National Park. Now I gotta look it up. Let's see here. Is it Estes Park? I think that's what it's called. Okay, so I went to Estes Park, Colorado. Went to Boulder, all that. Never been there before. I'd always dreamed of going out there. I'm an outdoorsman. I'm a fisherman, hunter, etc. So I brought my fly fishing stuff. It was beautiful. The mountains are beautiful. The place is great. We went to Boulder though, and it was a little rough, especially from what I was picturing. One of my kids went into a public restroom, and there were homeless people drying cigarette butts out on the counter. Another guy was drying his clothes in a hand dryer. There were people sleeping all over the streets, trash everywhere. It was just, it's depressing, right? And it's like, this is the kind of thing that happens when you let leftists kind of run things the way they want them run, because they have to just always be. They have to just be like, we just have to be, we just have to let everybody do whatever they want, because otherwise it's mean, right? Except for right wingers, you're not allowed to do whatever you want. Left wing, anything else, so you're allowed to do it. Criminals, we can't tell criminals no. It's just going to hurt their feelings, and it's going to be bad, And it was depressing. Like, it's a beautiful city, it's a beautiful place, and I was just kind of disappointed with the way it was, I guess I kind of expect it now. And then on the way back, we ended up hitting up a hotel in Illinois, which was overrun by, guess what? Guess who? Right? People that are not from this country. And guess what they did to the place? It was trashed. It was disgusting. Okay? Kids with me, there were used prophylactics on the ground, if you know what I mean. It was just gross. Okay, garbage everywhere. Place was packed. Lucky we could even get a room. And yeah, just really depressing. And I think like people need to realize like this is a real situation, and people that live in these areas are struggling through this. But yes, a lot of the time they vote for this kind of stuff. They do. There's a thing in a lot of liberals, leftist mind. Before you jump to my throat, I'm a libertarian. I'm a Mises Rothbardian libertarian. I'm anti-government from both sides. Okay, I'm maybe more of a minarchist than an anarchist, full blown, meaning smaller government. But I think I wouldn't consider myself a Trump supporter. Between the two of them, who I want to win, I want him to, because I can't stand the establishment, politicians, and the military-industrial complex, and the media, and all that crap. And I want them to lose. So, in that regard, and I think that a lot of times with these leftist liberal types, it's like they have this idea in their head: the only way you can be a good person is if you vote Democrat. A lot of them believe that. I've had conversations with people. Someone once told me, I can't handle it if I meet somebody who I think is a really nice, great person, then I find out they're a Trump supporter. What does that mean? All of a sudden, automatically, they're just a bad person because they support Trump? You don't even know why they do. But you assume that he is the scummiest of the scum, lowest of the low, a Nazi, a racist. The only person on earth that could support him is a terrible human being, right? That's the idea. But they think that we're good people because we like this, we support leftist policies. So we support taxation up the butt. We support criminals taking over everything. We support illegals taking over everything. We support the endless wars, the destruction. We do everything because we think it makes us good people when it's completely catastrophic. But that's what happens in places like this. And I'm saying everybody there is a Democrat, voted for Joe Biden or whatever, but Colorado has been pretty lefty for a little while here in a lot of parts. So this was an interesting thing that popped up on my radar just minutes ago. From the New York Post, Kamala Harris claims Trump would take away gun rights, so gun ownership and the right to free speech. So let's enjoy this first time listen together.
Your Fifth Amendment right, your Sixth Amendment right to an attorney.
Well, a lot of rights going to be gone. The First Amendment.
But the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. Yes. Look, I'm in favor of the Second Amendment. I don't believe we should be taking anybody's guns away. He wants to terminate the Constitution of the United States.
So you have it here. Kamala Harris says, is that Shannon Sharp? Kamala Harris is claiming she's really pushed this idea that she's a centrist. It's been a new thing. She ran in 2019 because she was probably the most radical left candidate. That was her point of existence at the time. She was anti-fracking. She was anti-gun. She was pro-censorship. She was pro-hate speech. She's pro-everything that the leftists, the far leftists, would like. And then all of a sudden we have, I'm pro-gun. I'm a gun owner myself. I want to build the wall. I am going to be tough on crime. I am going to get rid of taxes on tips. I'm just all these things. She's jumping on his stuff. And that's why we brought Tim Walz along. Tim Walz is he's a hunter and he wears a camo hat and he's a gun owner and he's just a white dude. Like they're trying to appeal to this more populist base of white men, basically. And there's just no way I believe that she's a gun owner. And if it wasn't up to her they're a big government leftist, that they would be all over taking your guns away if they had the opportunity to do it. They don't believe that they would, for 2 seconds, I don't believe for 2 seconds that she would not relish the opportunity to take guns away, as left as she is. She's flipped everything, but she's the kind of person that the minute she gets in, they said, Kamala, go out there and win this for us. So she's like, all right, I know what I'll do. I'll just pretend like somebody I'm not. And when they go, why did you change all your principles? Or why did you change everything you stood for in 2019? I just mingled with the people and they convinced me. Kamala Harris has been caught on the record numerous times pushing for censorship, especially on social media. She wants Elon Musk's rights to own X taken away. She thinks that there should be laws that hold social media to certain standards of moderation. Elon Musk has just been about free speech. Shannon Sharp says, if he's there, they're going to take your First Amendment and Second Amendment rights away. In what world is that even a thing? Where has that ever been brought up one time? There have been several times Kamala Harris and her tenure, during her tenure as, in this current administration, that they have pushed for outright censorship. Jen Psaki going up on there saying, yep, we've been reaching out to social media companies to really turn back the misinformation, blah, 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 blah. We know that happened. Mark Zuckerberg came out and said the FBI has actually censored people when they were asked. You have, remember the Ministry of Truth that they tried to set up? They tried to set up an actual government entity that would police speech with somebody that was the arbiter of truth. Mind you, the government and the media are wrong about 100% of everything. Okay, we'll say 99% of everything. And it's not just like they're wrong a lot of times because they screw up. It's because, first of all, we're all wrong all the time. The minute something happens, you don't have all your facts. Things are, we can quickly be swayed by the moment. It's just like this idea that we believe in science, right? Well, science is a process, and science is literally a thing where it's like, you never know what the actual science is unless it's a scientific law. And there's not very many of those. Science is a process of trying to disprove what somebody did before you, just like everything else is. I'm a historian. I wrote a book on Civil War medicine. There are probably thousands of books, articles, etc. on Civil War medicine. Maybe not thousands, but lots of them, hundreds of them. And if we all just agreed on the same thing, then what would be the point of having multiple books? We would have just one, right? History is this process where we constantly look back. We use each other's arguments to try to craft our own argument, our own interpretation of the evidence, finding new evidence, looking at it through a different school of history or historical approach. I'm going to look at it through a social history lens or a cultural history lens or economic history, whatever you name it, okay? There's no such thing as just we have the full-blown facts and nothing else can compete with us. You're wrong if you do. And they were trying to push this idea that we're going to create a ministry of truth, right? That's insane. That is nothing more than we are creating a place where we will use propaganda, and if you don't abide by it, you're wrong, you're going to get shut down. Like, what it is you cannot counter our narrative. Our narrative is truth, whether it's the truth or not. They're wrong about everything all the time. And not only that, are they wrong about everything, they flat out lie about a lot of things. They are blatantly trying to, they're blatantly trying to manipulate you and sway you in one direction or the other. Story I just showed you about Aurora, Colorado. Those facts have been around, right? We're not going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to call you a racist and a liar because if this gets out, this makes us look really bad, doesn't it? So this premise that Trump's going to take away free speech should raise red flags because that's not true. He was president before it didn't happen. And Kamala Harris actually has a track record of being a part of moves to take away free speech. Tim Walz and AOC were playing Madden, I'm sure it was real. I'm sure they were really playing it. I'm sure Tim Walz was really playing, we really want to talk about a playbook. We should talk about Project 2025. Who cares about that? And the two of them are like, we have to get rid of the filibuster, right? Oh, yeah, we do. Oh, yes, please. AOC and Tim Walz, please be the deciding factor on that. I think you know better than me. these are the people that want to really, these are the people that honestly want to censor your speech. Okay? They do. She has shown that she wants to. She has made comments that she wants to. So, one second. Texting my wife back here. So, you know, this idea that he's going to take away free speech, it's like, well, you're literally lying. And if it were up to you, you would censor anybody that runs counter to that narrative. You are the censorship regime. You were the censorship regime during the COVID regime. And then this idea Trump wants to take away your second. What in the hell are you talking about? Where is he saying that whatsoever? You were flat out lying to people. But this is a push to say, well, he wants to get rid of the Constitution. And let me show you this from James Carville, the Raging Cajun, saying, if the media really needs to cover Trump as if he is the risk, as if the Constitution is at risk. Excuse my dyslexia. Democratic strategist James Carville ranted about the media's coverage of former President Trump. He is highly critical of fake, fair coverage that doesn't emphasize how our constitutional republic is at severe risk. Like, what? So basically, any news whatsoever that doesn't just talk about Trump being a risk to the Constitution, he's highly critical of them. He wishes that the DNC had a stronger position about helping the middle class and the existence of the Constitution and the system of government of the United States is at risk. Did you guys know that the government, the Democrats and the media, they haven't been strong enough on that? They haven't made their opinions well known about Trump being a risk. Is this guy completely lost his mind? Here we go. We have 9 years to go in the existence of the Constitution and the system of government that we have had and treasured for so long. This country is at risk. Plain and simple. He emphasized that it needs to be covered that way, even invoking historical examples such as the media's coverage of segregationist Bull Connor and civil rights activist MLK. So it's really great because this idea that Trump is the ultimate threat to your Constitution is hilarious to me. How many times have they violated Donald Trump's constitutional rights and our constitutional rights? Huh? Let's see here. Let's go down the Bill of Rights here. You got, so your First Amendment, freedom of religion, speech, press, and assembly. Is that true? Well, they sure like to censor people. They sure like to try to push back against the press that is critical of them. They have been actively trying to censor anybody otherwise. Freedom of religion. Yeah, that's just... They've had moments during COVID. They were shutting people down from going to their churches. There you go. Violation of your First Amendment. Second Amendment rights. What cities and states is it where there are very, very strict gun laws? Are they? Well, they're Democrat cities and states, aren't they? Isn't it? Chicago has no guns allowed whatsoever, and guess what? One of the highest cities with gun crime is. Oh, it's Chicago. Unreasonable search and seizure. Your Fourth Amendment. I mean, the third one's restricting housing of soldiers in private homes, which, government can't just show up, jump in your life and try to catch you in the act of doing something you're not supposed to do. Also back then, back when we wrote this thing, there was a major fear about standing armies, and building forts was, not really in the question, so they just made them live with you. Now, there were forts, but they were not, in cities were the major areas where the king wanted to keep an eye on you. The best way to do it is have them live inside your house. Third Amendment restricts, so Fourth Amendment, protect your rights, or protect against unreasonable search and seizure. Why don't you go ask James O'Keefe about that? Why don't you go ask Donald Trump about that? Why don't you go ask countless people that were at the second, the bloodiest day since Pearl Harbor about that? Self-incrimination. You know what they do instead? They force you to take a plea deal, and if you don't, they'll just keep tacking on extra days and days and days and days. Years and years and years and years. Why don't you ask that guy that was the former Staples president who got caught up in that college scheme to doctor up test scores to get, celebrities and rich people's kids into college. When he didn't do anything wrong, they said, hey, we're going to hold you here and we're going to keep on adding on time until you admit you're wrong. You know why they do that? Because they can't look like they're wrong. They can't look like that they screwed up. All right, so it's right to a speedy trial by jury, and the services of a lawyer. What about those people that are stuck in solitary confinement, for forever because they did the worst thing you could possibly do by speaking out against your government? Trial by jury, excessive bail or fines and cruel and unusual punishment for crimes is having to pay the defendants of a lawsuit over $1 billion. Is that excessive, or is that a cruel and unusual punishment, or is getting stuck in solitary confinement 24 hours a day with beaming fluorescent lights in your face, is that cruel and unusual punishment? Power not granted to the federal government is reserved for states or individual people. You know what? All of that ties into the bureaucratic administrative state. You don't have, they can squash your individual rights whenever they want. They can, override your state's rights by creating laws illegally outside of Congress. But you know what? James Carville is right. We need to be way more vocal about the threat Trump represents to your constitutional rights. What a joke. Needs to be covered in that way. I'm highly critical of 80% of the media coverage that tells me that I do not understand their jobs. I understand clearly your job in Birmingham was to not cover Bull Connor and MLK equally. Your job at Pearl Harbor was not to cover Tojo and Franklin Roosevelt equally. You're supposed to cover Kamala Harris in a good light and Trump in a bad light. Did you know they're not doing that? Did you know that they're not being fair about this? They need to be way more harsh on Trump and more positive about Kamala. They're not doing enough of that. I think these people live in a made-up world. I do. I think they live in La La Land. I saw somebody today on a Substack comment. I'm not going to show it because I don't want anybody to go after people. It was Matt Taibbi was accused by somebody of taking payment from Elon Musk to buy journalists to help push Trump's election, his election chances. And first of all, Matt Taibbi has been very vocal about his support for Substack. Substack has a notes feature, a video post feature, blogging feature. Substack, in a way, is a competitor to X. So Matt Taibbi thinks that he's been censored on, or not censored, but he's been his account's been I can't think of the word. I forgot what the word he used. It wasn't censored, but it was similar to that. His account's been suppressed by Elon Musk because of his support of Substack and the notes feature. But Google Elon Musk right now and tell me how many stories of Elon Musk pop up that are positive. And you're going to accuse a journalist like Matt Taibbi of being part of a purchased press core that's going to promote Elon Musk and make him look positive. He's probably, next to Trump, he's the second most vilified person in the United States. Especially since he's become more vocal about his support of Trump. But yeah, you're right. This is the thing, though. I hear this all the time. I hear people say, why is the media not calling Trump out for this? Why is the media helping Trump? Like, what? There's just no actual real life world existence where that is a thing. Like, that is a fantasy world you live in if you think that's reality. Unbelievable. All right, so this was an article from The Hill, so I'm just going over that James Carville thing. What a joke. From The Hill. This is from The Hill from today. Today, 10 o'clock a.m. John Driscoll is the writer. Raising the minimum wage is the key to the White House for Kamala Harris. So they're talking about, Trump did the McDonald's thing. It was a good photo op, but guess what? He has a glaring weakness. His stance on minimum wage. He wouldn't answer the question about raising minimum wage. He dodged the question. But the only, and of course, the attack is, well, he's talking about improving Americans' lives, but he won't. It's just an empty promise because he won't raise minimum wage. Listen. Minimum wage for Kamala Harris. If Kamala Harris wanted to commit campaign suicide, and after all this talk about supporting the middle class, then she would talk about raising the minimum wage. People need to understand what the minimum wage is. It is just the price based on what the value of work is. And you had this idea in your head a lot of times, if you're, especially if you're a liberal or Democrat or leftist, that the reason why people get paid a crap minimum wage is just because of the greedy, exploitative business owners that don't want to fork over the money. If you work in small businesses, you work for little privately owned companies, actual middle class people, they don't make any money. I've worked in plenty of them. They barely make money. They put all their money and their heart and their soul into their business. I've worked at plenty of jobs like that. I used to manage lots of pet stores and different things. And a lot of the people that you pay minimum wage to, they are not worth you paying that minimum wage to. Okay? Come at me. Really. Because, and the reason why people get raises at jobs like that is because they're worth more than the people that aren't worth the minimum wage. And minimum wage is never meant to be a thing for people to make a living off of. Okay, it's meant to I start out, I work my way up, you get promoted, and you get promoted pretty quickly if you're just a regular working person. A lot of times you can, if you show you show you're motivated, you work hard, you show up on time, you don't call off. There are lots of things you can do, especially in today's day and age. Oh, I'm sure that if you get a job and you bust your ass and you show up on time and don't call off, they'll be begging you to stay and paying you whatever you want. Beside the point, small business owners a lot of times don't make any money. That's one problem. Another problem is the only businesses that benefit from high minimum wages because are the companies that can afford to pay it. That's corporations that make a lot of money. That's Walmart, Meijer, Target, Home Depot, Amazon, right? People that own those are not middle class. People that work in them usually are not middle class. Traditionally, your middle class is your small business owner in the United States of America, the backbone of this country. You give people jobs that way. And all you're going to do by raising minimum wages, you're going to cripple the middle class further. You're going to leave the economy in a state of crisis when it comes to unemployment. Nobody will be able to pay anybody this higher wage in the small, middle class, small business ownership genre of people. And then on top of that, you will have corporations will be flooded with employees that there will not be openings for people to work. And that is the direction you would move in if you cranked up minimum wage. This idea of a livable wage. What is a livable wage? Is $15 an hour a livable wage? If I'm a small business owner and I'm operating at a 20% margin, 20% profit margin, and I have 30 employees, what the hell am I going to do to scrape together enough money to pay everybody in their $15 an hour? Let's say half of my staff is high school kids. They come in for their shift after school or on the weekends. And then the rest of my staff, they're like older. I pay them $15 an hour as it is. And I hire a bunch of high school kids. And they call off all the time and they're sick and they want to leave early. And when they're at work, they just kind of screw around. They don't really work hard. I'm still paying them all that money. Like, you're just going to force a small business out of business. And for this person from the Hill to say, well, she needs to be talking about minimum wage if she really wants to win this thing, that's not going to help anything. We are already in an economic crisis as it is in this country. If you want to ensure you're going to stay in one, promote this idea of a livable wage that is mandated by government. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to do anything to help anybody but make everything worse. Learn something about economics, please, for the love of God. It's this idea of just, listen, the business owner does not owe the means of production or, does not owe all of his money to the people that work for him. He incurred all the risk. He invested all the money in building the place. If it wasn't for him, you would not have a job anyways if you worked there. He should just have to give you all of his money. No, then don't work there. Go find another job. Sorry, I have no sympathy for that. And trust me, I grew up in a generation where everybody told me, if I want to make money growing up, go to college, you get a good job. I went to college, and guess what my first job was out of college? I made $8 an hour making smoothies. Then I made pizza. Then I delivered pizza. Then I got a retail job at a pet store. Then I became a manager of a pet store. Then I became a district manager. Then I became a longtime store manager for another company. And then, I was in grad school, got a PhD, got a master's, got a PhD. That was the progress of my life. But I made no money for years. I worked 2 jobs, 3 jobs, third shift while going to school. I mean, I lived a rough life for a while, living that life. And I got to the, would it have been nice if somebody was just like, you have to pay this guy $15 an hour? It wouldn't have made a difference because I probably wouldn't have been able to get a job in the first place. It would have to be menial jobs that would be hyper competitive. And then if we all made $15 an hour, you're just going to cause higher inflation because the government's going to have to print money to pay people. They're going to have to subsidize big corporations to pay. It would just be a joke. Be a mess. So for this idea that you're going to somehow mandate a livable wage for people, you need to understand how economics works. Free market economics does not work if the government holds a gun to your head and demands that you pay somebody X amount of dollars so you get penalized. Well, if I don't have the money, too bad. Find it. All right, sorry, dude, you're fired. But I need this job. I gotta feel. Well, it doesn't matter. Don't you think somebody would much rather get paid $8 or $9 an hour than $0 an hour? And if you have a family and kids, yep, that's a rough life. It is. It sucks. But aside from the government printing trillions of dollars to pay everybody these quote unquote livable wages, there's really no other option because. So in the end, progressivism, which is what the Democrats abide by, is a system where corporations are the ones who ultimately win out. For Kamala Harris to claim, oh, Trump loves billionaires and billionaires love him and he's just there to support his billionaire buddies. That's not true at all. Progressives are the party of billionaires for a reason. when you have to pay a higher, tax rate for businesses making over X amount of dollars, you will choke out smaller competition, and only the ultra wealthy will stick out. Is a great way to have top-down control of things, top-down control of culture, right? Top-down control of the economy. They want only corporations to stand. Corporations can help push regulatory ideas. They can crush smaller competition. There's nothing to prove that Kamala Harris of the Democrats care about the middle class. Their policies do not dictate that. Kamala Harris is talking about, she's going to create an opportunity economy by doing a higher child tax credit. Okay, cool. And then, we'll just we'll just subsidize the crap out of the economy and help people get, start businesses and it's not going to work. You can't just flood the market with funny money and think that that's how everything is going to pan out. That it's just this opportunity economy is going to be great. No. An opportunity economy sounds like a government-run economy. I don't want any part of that. All right, well, last story I can get to tonight. This is an interesting story from Just the News. Amid high-profile newspaper endorsement stories, there has been a major drop in the overall number of newspapers endorsing candidates. From 2016 to now, there's been a 60% drop-off in newspapers endorsing Democrats. In 2016, Hillary Clinton drew in 240 endorsements from newspapers. Biden fell to 120, Kamala to 80. Trump has less than 10. Trump had 20 in 2016. Big surprise. Most notable being in this upcoming thing here, this upcoming election, is that Washington Post and the LA Times have not endorsed a candidate. Jeff Bezos actually stepped forward and said he's going to try to install more balanced politics when it comes to his editorials and his opinions staff, which is crazy to hear from Jeff Bezos because the Washington Post is like a notorious leftist rag. Robert Kagan, one of the grand architects of the Iraq War, founder of the Project for the New American Century with Irving Kristol, or Bill Kristol. If he was the editor at large, he quit because they wouldn't endorse Kamala Harris. It's proof that the neocons have just become Democrats. Democrats have become the neocons. So, well, all right. Well, that's going to be everything I could get to tonight. So please like and subscribe and share my channel. Follow my links below if you would like to see where all the stories are. I didn't get to everything tonight, but I'll try my best to in the next few days. So thanks again. Please subscribe and like and share, and I will be back with you on Wednesday.